Hello again, friends. In this episode, we are going to examine the concept of whether or not the seventh-day Sabbath is a true moral. As you might be aware, Seventh-day Adventists often make the mistake of labeling the Ten Commandments as God's moral law, and what is outside of these commandments is supposedly given to being abrogated. Yet Adventists seemingly do not notice that the Ten Commandments themselves are actually the Old Covenant, made with Israel at Mount Sinai. Here are a couple of passages in the Old Testament that tell us that the Ten Commandments are the actual words of the covenant. Exodus 34 verses 27 to 28, "And the Lord said to Moses, Write these words, for in accordance with these words I have made a covenant with you and with Israel." So he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He neither ate bread nor drank water. And he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the Ten Commandments. And Deuteronomy 4 verse 13, "And he declared to you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, that is, the Ten Commandments, and he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone." The author of Hebrews, when describing the holy place, tells us that the ark that contained the covenant was covered on all sides with gold, in which was a golden urn holding the manna, and Aaron's staff that budded, and the tablets of the covenant. Hebrews 9 verse 4. So the Ten Commandments are the Old Covenant, and the Old Covenant is now obsolete. Hebrews 8 verse 13, in speaking of a new covenant, he makes the first one obsolete. At this point, Adventists often posit the question that if the Ten Commandments are abolished, then it would mean that it is now okay for us to lie, steal, cheat, and commit murder, and all the rest. Of course, the answer here is obviously no. Recall that the Ten Commandments are the capstone of the Old Covenant, and thus represent all of the civil, ceremonial, and moral aspects of the Old Testament law. Also remember that true morals are in place all of the time. It's always wrong to lie, steal, commit adultery, and murder 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Again, such things are wrong and evil all of the time. So obviously a command that is to be followed only from Friday evening to Saturday evening cannot be a true moral that everyone naturally knows about. Thus it must be ceremonial in nature, because it is in fact kept ritualistically, once every week. A list of moral sins is mentioned in the latter half of Romans chapter 1. These laws are known naturally by all mankind to be wrong, and thus are considered to be natural moral law. Romans 1 verse 19, "For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them." So God has shown mankind without written divine revelation, but rather morality is written on the hearts of all mankind. And we expect all men to act morally, even in cultures where they don't know God. After all, man was made in the image of God morally, and even though we have now fallen, we still know about good and evil. This is one thing that makes us different from the animals. Genesis 3 verse 22, "Then the Lord God said, Behold, the man has become like one of us in knowing good and evil." Mankind may sense that he needs to physically rest at some time regularly, but he will not know if he needs to rest every 6 days or 8 days, or maybe he will rest for a whole week after working for 2 or 3 weeks straight in a row like firemen do. Although man may sense there is a God, mankind naturally knows nothing about a Sabbath command. In fact, that is why God had to set up this command, which was given exclusively to the Jewish people as a sign between God and his chosen, to set them apart as a special people unto himself. Ezekiel 20 verse 12, "Moreover, I gave them my Sabbaths as a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am the Lord who sanctifies them." The Sabbath was therefore a command, which reflected to other nations that God had covenanted with this particular people alone, and was a sign of this covenant. This sign was not a moral responsibility expected of anyone else. In fact, it could not be a special sign command if every culture was already keeping it. So even though mankind knows the other commands like "Thou shalt not steal," murder, lie, commit adultery, or to not dishonor parents, mankind knows absolutely nothing about the command to rest starting at dusk on Fridays and continue to Saturday evening. Again, this was a command that was given strictly to the Jews alone. So again, moral laws toward God and mankind are in place all of the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Therefore, a command given that is only in place from sunset Friday to sunset Saturday is obviously not a moral command, but rather it represents the ceremonial aspect of the Mosaic Law. Please take a moment to like and subscribe.